Welcome to part 2 of my BMS air interdiction tutorial series. Part 1 demonstrated the basics of how I fly an air interdiction mission within Falcon BMS's dynamic campaign. I covered specific ramp start checks, the radar and targeting pod work required for building a mental picture of the ground war, setting up an attack run, and when to egress to avoid a threat. Part 2 will cover efficient attack profiles for employing 8 laser-guided bombs in a matter of minutes on one centerline tank of fuel, while inflicting major losses to the enemy, all in a jet not exactly designed to be a bomb truck. 8 hits, 25 kills. I'll go into more detail on the T-pod and laser management, keeping up SA of the ground picture, and how to handle the common ground-based threats to your mission in KTO, the Korea Theater of Operations. There's a bonus section at the end with danger close emergency close air support when friendly troops surround an enemy battalion. More advanced tutorials will follow on how to work in bad weather and nighttime conditions, and how to run more organized AI missions in multiplayer. 29 inner ring here at Chalice, Spade 1-1 Bogey Dope.
Spade 1-1 Chalice 1, nearest threat 04010 17,000. Hot, hostile, Prince MiG-29, Singleton.
Okay, unfortunately I'm going to have to abort this while my friendlies scramble over here. No, I think I'm good. I'm gonna turn back in and assume that Phantom's gonna... There we go, I'm naked. Okay, turning back in. In this first segment, I'll outline 2 attack profiles for multiple GPU drops in one area. I'll start by explaining a feature of the T-pod designed to mitigate its biggest drawback, its limited field of view, that these profiles are designed around. When the targeting pod's line of sight to the target becomes blocked by part of your aircraft, or you maneuver too aggressively, it will enter something called inertial rates mode and display INR on its MFD until line of sight is clear again. The pod will then attempt a point or area track of whatever it thinks was your previous track, but the more time you spend in INR mode, the more position error accumulates, and you'll have to slew your TGP to reacquire. To avoid laser masking, just remember that the TGP is mounted to the F-16's right-hand chin mount, and that it has a forward-facing camera. Therefore, a left-hand bank away from your target will eventually put the underside of your left wing and the belly of your aircraft between the T-pod and your target. And of course, the pod can only pivot its front-mounted camera so far back. There's an Eagle taking care of people for me. Loft Q. And there's Pickle. And Lays. Check left. The first profile is based on a clockwise overhead orbit or wheel around the targets, flown as high as the aircraft comfortably will, usually under Angels 2-4. I drop the first bomb and make a 90-degree turn to the left, pulling a couple of Gs and fly cold while lasing the target behind and to my right. A turn like this shouldn't send the TGP into INR mode or mask the laser prior to impact, which is going to take about 35 seconds. If you see the flashing TGP crosshairs and that laser mask is imminent, just nose down slightly and bank slightly to the right, which will clear line of sight. If flown correctly, you should be around 7 miles slant range away from your target at bomb impact, maintain altitude, acquire another target as you turn hot, and have time to get on the bomb fall line as your loft Q pops up. As you get better and make your turn in hot more aggressive, you'll lose altitude and your TGP will briefly enter INR mode, but you'll be able to slew back on target if needed and gain altitude again quickly before release. Coming down, let's see if I can pull this off here. And I still have the target TGP picked him back up. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 Pickle. So that was an extremely aggressive attack profile. I did breach my my hard deck there of 17,000 feet. The second profile is a grinder or racetrack pattern towards and away from the target on a consistent heading and its reciprocal. I will make a right hand 1.5 to 2.5 G hook turn at each end of the racetrack. This profile is best when there are hazards to aircraft in the area, for example an air defense envelope on one side of your target, or in multiplayer flights when your wingmen are all working in parallel racetracks to one another. However, if you end up too low and too far from your target on the cold leg, your laser will become masked and it will be harder to maneuver your jet to reacquire. By the same token, it will be harder to acquire the next target without your pod entering INR mode, and you will turn hot to find your sensor has drifted away from the target. Since a fully loaded F-16 will have trouble flying much higher than Angel's 2-4, higher terrain below you will mask your lasers sooner as you flow cold in the grinder. You may need to extend the hook turn in this case away from the target and spend more time abeam with your pod's line of sight at your left 9 o'clock. I prefer the first profile, the orbit, where I can put the target at my 3 o'clock for as long as I need while lasing or looking for other targets. A basic ground attack profile is there to help you redirect some of your focus away from aviating and towards building SA of the ground picture. A sniper or lantern targeting pod is your best tool for this, and a pilot skilled at manipulating those in concert with the jet's radar, horizontal situation display, helmet-mounted cueing system, Markpoints, and of course the Mark 1 eyeball will be highly lethal. This next segment will dive into more nuances of the T-pod. Fine control over the cursor of your HOTAS is critical for this kind of work and can be a big issue for some depending on equipment and your settings. Slewing your TGP system point of interest, or SPI, can be made much easier by reducing your cursor speed setting in the BMS configuration file. You can see I've reduced mine to 0.53, which still allows me to slew around the radar scope at a decent rate. Another factor in controllability is how close you are flying to where your pod is looking. When close to your system point of interest, entering area track with TMS right can stop the TGP image from jittering and will make slewing more controllable. However, if your TGP SPI is many miles off in the distance from you, area track will actually make vertical slewing much less controllable.
Chaos affirmative. 03630, 21,000 hostile T contact. Roger. Hammer commit. Chaos update, hostile 4 contact. Who's payboy?
One shack, got 2 GB with 54 left for me.
You won't always be able to point track the centermost vehicle in a group of vehicles, as your pod may not be able to distinguish the different units. You'll want to use area track to laser designate the center of mass of the group to ensure maximum destruction, but be ready to slew your SPI manually and or acquire point track on a vehicle if they start to drive away. If you are in point track mode and want to slew your SPI to the center of mass or somewhere else, first press TMS right to switch to area track. This prevents your cursor from jumping and trying to point track another object nearby. Don't forget that by default, the SPI of your TGP is coupled to the SPI of your radar. A track with either sensor must be broken with TMS down before you can really freely slew the other sensor around.
Friendlies are getting pounded once again here. Your area of operations can span hundreds of square miles, and you can't expect to find targets easily with just the TGP. GPS mark points are simply steer points created on the fly and are key to zeroing in on enemy units. A target steer point you place on an enemy battalion in the map room might not be relevant when you arrive on station, as the battlefield is always changing. As shown in Part 1, you should mark 1 or 2 target positions on the radar after their confirmed bogey. Choose one to make your current steer point and then slew your sensors from that anchor point as needed during your mission. You can then always snap your system point of interest back to that spot by breaking the sensor's track with TMS down or a quick flip to dogfight mode and back and pressing cursor 0. To make a mark point with the FCR, enter fixed target track on the desired spot with TMS up, press 7 on the ICP, and TMS up again. You can reference that point immediately by pressing 0 or mode select on the ICP, but be sure to cancel autopilot steering select first or your jet will veer there. As soon as my TGP can resolve ground units, I might make a new mark point near high priority units, i.e. SHORADs, artillery, tanks, and command APCs. To make a mark point with the TGP, enter area track with TMS right, press 7 on the ICP, press TMS up again when your SPI is in the right spot. When marking, your TGP may enter point track on an object nearby, but the actual GPS point will be generated in the proper spot. You can continue to make other mark points with further presses of TMS up, but you must press TMS down and the highlighted cursor 0 button before your SPI will coincide with your currently referenced mark point. Of course, you won't often be dropping laser-guided bombs on mark points. You'll be employing them on your SPI in a track mode. Mark points fill slots 26 through 30 in your DTC and subsequently overwrite the older mark points. When you inevitably forget to exit the mark point DED page, you'll go into point track on a unit and accidentally create a new mark point, possibly deleting your hard work. If you enter air-to-air master mode and try to lock up a radar contact while on the Markpoint DED page, you'll probably be pulling your hair out when you think your TMS up button is broken. As you get within 30 miles of the area of operations, consider beaming the area and taking a few minutes to compare what you see on the radar to your map and to what you see outside the jet. Look for landmarks, dust clouds formed by moving vehicles, smoke plumes, and explosions.
Visual.
Okay, where the road turns north, just a little ways north along that road, you will see gray smoke that's blowing southwest from Falcon 5-2's previous hits. Call when tally that smoke.
Tally visual.
Okay, with the TGP slew north through the saddle between those two mountains, just another couple miles at most, and stand by. Plasma 6 is lasing 1 times enemy self-propelled artillery driving north along that road. An obscure feature of the targeting pod most people go their entire lives without even noticing is the Situational Awareness Indicator Symbology, which is a 6x6 pixel dot always present somewhere on your TGP screen. This dot helps provide SA about your SPI's location relative to you without taking your eyes off. This can be tricky to interpret as it shows where the SPI is relative to a vector extending straight out of your aircraft's belly, but regardless of pitch or roll of your aircraft. If you want to better understand this feature, just spend a few minutes flying around and comparing how the dot's location changes relative to the SPI cross displayed on your HSD. The manual's explanation of the SA dot is a little lackluster, and I think the best hint I can give about it is that when the SA dot is in the very center of your TGP crosshairs, the vector extending out of your aircraft's belly is pointed right at the SPI. Now, whether your jet is directly overhead and the SPI is directly underneath you, or whether your jet is nose up 80 degrees and the SPI is off in the distance in front of you, is up to you to determine. Finally, don't neglect your standby attitude indicator just above your right MFD, and this is why I always have my TGP on that MFD. A quick glance to this instrument can tell you all you need to know about your orientation while in the critical moments of lasing a bomb onto target. That guy, he is 9.9 miles from me. So this session I pulled 4.1 Gs today. Make sure to check your loadout screen for your performance limits before your mission, as over-G'ing or overspeeding your bombs can break their fusing and cut your mission short. A healthy margin under the limits is a good idea. Think Gs under 4.5, negative Gs to negative 0.5, Mach under 0.92, and a minimum speed at 0.65 Mach just for good maneuverability and good CCRP release parameters. And at 8.5 miles, 31,000 feet, it's time to turn back in here. Get SA by looking over this direction before I head on over there. Pulling 2.5 G, so I could pull more if I wanted. You can aggressively pull. Threats to air interdiction in Korea usually include short-range infrared surface-to-air missile systems and AAA. Air interdiction is usually flown once medium and long-range SAMs in the area are destroyed, and there is an easy way to stay safe from these lower-level threats. I recommend you set your MSL floor warning to 17,000 feet while at the ramp, or better yet, permanently in your DTC using the Weapon Delivery Planner program. Bitching Betty will then remind you to stay above this flight level, which will keep you safe from short-range SAMs in the flatter areas of Korea in easier campaigns. Some anti-aircraft guns can still reach you here, but don't panic. If you notice AAA flak exploding near you, just weave and bob a little and fly out of their envelope. There are 3 types of SAMs that are typically a threat to you and other AI and CAS aircraft, and should be targeted and destroyed when detected. The SA-9, SA-13, and SA-14. The engagement height above ground level for SA-14 manpads is 10,000 feet, for SA-9s is 14,500, and for SA-13s is 12,000. If you're lucky enough to notice one of these heat-seeking missile launches, you may easily be able to flare off a manpad or SA-9, but the SA-13 is much more dangerous, as its missile is all aspect. If you are engaged, it's unlikely you'll survive an SA-13 shot, but keep up your air picture and run cold from any threats that are hot within 20 miles, and you'll rarely be forced down within their reach.
Spade 1-1 Chalice 1. Contact is friendly.
Got some friendlies over here, very nice. Spade, declare mud 06968.
Spade 1-1 Chalice 1. Contact is a bogey.
Okay, we've got troops in contact right here. Time for some emergency close air support, I would say.
Much of the footage from my Veterans Gaming server flight shown here is technically close air support rather than air interdiction. If you're planning your interdiction area of operations within 15 or 20 miles of the FLOT, your mission to interdict an enemy trying to reach the front line can easily become close air support of your troops and vehicles, as mine did during this recording. CAS is a much more dynamic and risky mission. Between my ramp start, ingress, and time spent in the AO, friendly vehicles moved tens of miles north across the previous FLOT. Without my knowledge, they ended up surrounding and even mixing with an enemy towed artillery battalion in the mountains north of the DMZ. I used my normal rules of engagement check by slewing my FCR cursor over a column's radar return and declaring with J-stars. I heard confirmed enemy, and then I VID'd the targets before attacking with my last laser-guided bomb and then my cannon. What I didn't realize was the north half of the column was a mix of friendlies and enemies. This was possibly a rare situation, but it could have ended in disaster for my friendlies if they had driven into my gun sights. When your troops are this close to an enemy, you probably shouldn't attack. Having a forward air controller airborne with you to monitor the situation closely is critically helpful.
Okay, because the situation is so dire, ground forces have called me in for a low-angle gun strafe and more emergency close air support. I only have 3,500 pounds of fuel remaining, so I am Joker fuel, so these should be enemies here. So I'm at Joker. Let's quick reset. Let me go 2,500. Troops in contact, absolutely. More ECAS is called for here. Like, there we go, more guns. Towed artillery set up here. Let's declare. Chalice declare 06868. Mud.
Spade 1-1 Chalice 1. Contact is a bogey.
Okay, confirmed enemy. So I've got a few different towed artillery to pick from out here, so it's time to put them at about my 1 o'clock. I'm going to descend aggressively out of here. Hold uncaged to get into the Strafe symbology here. Okay, there's Strafe. But with Strafe you lose your CCRPQ. So I'm going to come back out of Strafe. And I'll pull that off at the last second. So I will be flying from south to north across friendly lines here, which means manpads shouldn't be as much of an issue here, but nonetheless I'm going to select Program 4, which gives me, I think I get a total of 40 seconds of flare coverage if I start pumping out flares here. Check the picture here. Are these guys still alive?
Altitude. Altitude.
Okay, here we go. No guarantee my HMCS is aligned properly. So I'm going to want my CCRPQs to guide me in here. I'm going to go about 30 degrees down max, going over 400 knots. Let's prepare to get CCRP. I mean the Strafe Symbology pulled up here. Here's Strafe. And time to run
Chaff, flare.
program number okay, here we go. Tally. Pumping out flares. Hopefully no manpads are coming for me here. It takes practice to blend this complex sensor management in the F-16 with safe aviating and maintaining your air picture. There are a lot of two-seater ground attack jets out there in the real world, but until we have one in BMS, you're going to have to make do with the F-16. There's probably many tricks I've not detailed or don't even have experience in, like using the air-to-ground radar in snowplow mode to force the SPI out in front of you, and other things I should have emphasized more, like remembering to frequently recalibrate your HMCS in Navigation Master Mode. I will mention one more thing. If you're disoriented, simply build separation between you and the target area so that you can point your jet and your sensors forward again. Resist the urge to fly right over the target, and instead beam it and start a wheel around it until you have a plan. As they say in the Navy, slow is fast, or something like that. If the air picture becomes too dangerous, jettison your stores and RTB. And Chalice Big 1, request null posit 07666, Angels 14. Making it home safe even without any kills can be much more satisfying than getting repeatedly blown up while being stupid. If needed, take a break at your local farm to refuel and head back out to the hunt. Part 3 of the video series will demonstrate tricks to landing safely on these short runways close to the flot, which can get you back out to the fight much faster than refueling with some distant tanker. I'll see you back for FARP Ops training, and until then, try out the Veterans Gaming server. The Discord is linked in the description.
6, 17,000. Hot, hostile, Prince 230, Singleton.